यशोदानन्दना व्रजजनरञ्जना यमुनातीरा वनचारी यमुना तीरा वनचारी जय जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी गोपी जनवल्लभ गिरिभरधारी यशोदानन्दन व्रजजनरञ्जना यशोदानन्दन व्रजजनरञ्जना यमुनातीर वनचारी यमुनातीर वनचारी जय जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare. विष्णु पाद परमहंस प्रयोजकाचार्य अष्टोत्तर श्रीमद् ऐसी भक्ति वेदांत स्वामी प्रभुपाद की एवं विष्णु पाद परमहंस प्रयोजकाचार्य अष्टोत्तर शत श्रीमद् भक्ति सिद्धांत सरस्वती ठाकुर श्री प्रभुपाद की अनंत कोटि वैष्णव की नामाचार्य श्री हृदास ठाकुर की प्रेम से गौ श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद की श्री श्री राधा कृष्ण गोप गोपीनाथ श्याम कुंड राधा कुंड गिरि गोवर्धन की वृंदावन धाम की मथुरा धाम की गंगा माई की यमुना माई की तुलसी देवी की भक्ति देवी की समवेत भक्तवृंद की all glories to Samudvara Hare Krishna, all glories to Samudvara Hare Krishna, all glories to Samudvara Hare Krishna, all glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Okay, reading from Canto 3, Chapter 13, text number 4. So, okay. Śrutasya puṁsāṁ sucira-śramasya nanu añjasā sūribhir īḍitaḥ arthaḥ tat-tad-guṇānuśravaṇaṁ mukunda pādāravindaṁ hṛdayeṣu yeṣām śrutasya puṁsāṁ sucira-śramasya nanv añjasā sūribhir īḍito rthaḥ tat-tad-guṇānuśravaṇaṁ mukunda pādāravindaṁ hṛdayeṣu yeṣām śrutasya puṁsāṁ sucira-śramasya nanv añjasā sūribhir īḍito rthaḥ tat-tad-guṇānuśravaṇaṁ mukunda pādāravindaṁ hṛdayeṣu yeṣām. Please repeat. Tasya puṁsāṁ sucira-śramasya śrutasya, of persons who are in the process of hearing. Puṁsāṁ, of such persons. Sucira, for a long time. Śramasya, laboring very hard. Nanu, certainly. Añjasā, elaborately. Sūribhir, by pure devotees. Īḍitaḥ, explained by. Arthaḥ, statements. Tat-tad, that. Guṇa, transcendental qualities. Anuśravaṇaṁ, thinking. Mukunda, the personality of Godhead, who awards liberation. Pādāravindaṁ, the lotus feet. hṛdayeṣu, within the heart. yeṣām, of them. Translation: persons who hear from a spiritual master with great labor for a long time must hear from the mouths of pure devotees about the character and activities of pure devotees. Pure devotees always think within their hearts of the lotus feet of the Personality of Godhead, who awards his devotees liberation. Purport: transcendental students are those who undergo great penance in being trained by hearing the Vedas from a bona fide spiritual master. Not only must they hear about the activities of the Lord, but they must also hear about the transcendental qualities of the devotees who are constantly thinking of the lotus feet of the Lord within their hearts. A pure devotee of the Lord cannot be separated from the lotus feet of the Lord for even a moment. Undoubtedly, the Lord is always within the heart of all living creatures. But they hardly know about him because they are deluded by the illusory material energy. The devotees, however, realize the presence of the Lord, and therefore they can always see the lotus feet of the Lord within their hearts. Such pure devotees of the Lord are as glorious as the Lord. They are in fact recommended by the Lord as more worshipable than he himself. Worship of the devotee is more potent than worship of the Lord. It is therefore the duty of the transcendental student to hear of the pure devotees as explained by similar devotees of the Lord. Because one cannot explain about the Lord or his devotees unless one happens to be a pure devotee himself. Om Jnana Timirandhasya Gnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmitamina Tasmai Shri Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitamina Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadadi Sabadandikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shvetapatakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavangsha Shri Rupam Sagaratatam Sagaran Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadhuitam Savatina Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sagaran Lalita Shiv Shakan Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandha Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namaste Datta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavane Sūribhir Shivanusute Devi Pranamami Haripriya Vanchakalpadruvesha Kripa Sindhu Bhivacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavibhyo Namo Namaha Namo Vishnu Pādaya Krishna Prashtavatur Srimate Bhakti Vikasa Swami Nityamani Namo Vishnu Pādaya Krishna Prashtavatur Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Nityamani Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharani Nirvisesha Shunyavadi Paschati Deshani Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivas Adi Gaura Bhaktivinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jnananandam Mayam Devam Nirvam Spatikakritam Adharam Sarva Vidyanam Hai Guru Mupasmahe Guru Vaishnava Bhagavan Tiner Smarana Hoy Vigna Vinachana Nayasya Nijavanchita Purana. So let me just quickly send a message here. Okay, so here, being described, we're obviously into the 13th chapter now, the appearance of Lord Varaha, which we'll see an ecstatic pastime of the Lord, beginning with Vidura and Maitreya here conversing. Very, very amazing verse. A lot of qualifications and discussions taking upon in this verse that are important to understand because most people don't understand how to hear and who to hear from, and what they qualifies, what the qualification of the hearer and the qualification of the speaker are both addressed in this particular verse. Few things. Śrutasya, of persons who are in the process of hearing. Sucira, for a long time. And śramasya, laboring very hard, are the qualifications of the hearer here. As you can see that they hear for a very long time with very hard labor. It's not very easy to hear on and on and on about the Vedas, because it takes a great level of austerity, the ability to just concentrate and memorize and understand the philosophy of Krishna consciousness or of the Vedas is quite a difficult task because it's so vast. So one has to be very attentive in his hearing, and he has to be willing to go through that level of austerity as being described, great labor for a long time. It's persons who hear from a spiritual master with great labor, that they put a lot of work into hearing from a spiritual master. What does that mean? It doesn't mean you just hear a bunch of lectures and yes, I heard so many lectures, but one actually understands how to assimilate those and practically apply in his life. That is great labor. It is easier just to hear, goes in through one ear and comes out the other, but it's great labor to hear that message and to imbibe that message. Those are, the labor mainly comes in imbibing that message and practicing that and really making that a point in our life. So, when one studies Veda, it doesn't just mean to study just knowledge itself. It actually is a culture of knowledge. And an important article in regards to that, see if I have it here, by Bhakti Vikas Maharaj, this will be included in his mentioning that this is one of the few that is included in his work of Vaishnava culture and etiquette, of meaning and importance of sadachar. That just studying the Vedas is not enough itself, that there should be seen a genuine transformation of heart and one's behavior. So he writes that actually sadachar is said to be the basis of religion, for without it, many high things may be taught, but one will not be able to maintain realization of them and will fall down. So the students of the Vedas, the labor hard here is mentioned here, that actually most difficult thing to change in our life is our nature and our behavior. It's, in one sense, you could say any half-brain man could learn. You go to a school, you can learn pretty easily. It's not that hard. You read, understand, and you regurgitate. That's how we're taught generally in school. And we're judged by some test or something. But within Veda, the spiritual master doesn't judge just according to the level of knowledge he has. That is a given, that you should know that. Okay. But how your sadachar, how is your behavior? Then that the spiritual master judges the disciple on that basis. How are you acting? Because the fruit of your knowledge should be that you act properly. So sadachar, it is the basis of religion. For without which such things, sadachar means one to act properly, as the definition may be given here. But proper behavior defined as. And so he also mentions that Manu Samhita, it states that dharma has sadachar as its root. So it understands that without sadachar, there's no question of proper dharma if you don't act properly. So, thus Vedic culture can be said to be based upon, characterized and maintained by sadachar. So, another quote here, Maharaj writes from Sanatana Goswami, better write only the procedures of worship and serving the Lord. What is the use of writing other sadachar practices? To answer this objection, the essential of sadachar is written, starting with the verse, nakinchit. Since nothing can be successful without sadachar, every action must be performed with sadachar, with proper behavior. So you may know so much shastra, you may know so much of the Vedas and be able to quote so much Sanskrit and be able to bring out so many meanings, but if your sadachara is not correct, then everything is more or less shram ehi kevalam. What is the use? What did you get out of it? What was it for? Just some mental speculation. And we had this discussion. In light of the pursuance of Bhagavad Dharma, the goal is, which is? Yeah, Krishna Prema, service to Krishna. In comparison to that, our little knowledge of Shastra is not very useful if our behavior is not proper. Why am I speaking of this? Because this is going on to describe hearing about pure devotees of the Lord. So that is very important, and specifically stating here the labor they had to go, that a person has to go through. That purification is not just of learning, but is of proper action. And as Srila Prabhupada often states, that the devotional service is dependent on the advancement in devotional service is dependent on the attitude of the follower. Sadachar, coming back to sadachar, one's actions, how one. And what does sadachar constitute? Actually, well, how one thinks, how one acts, how one speaks. These all constitute one's sadachar. So, or here, commonly in Sanskrit text, sadachar is rendered simply as achar, conduct, prefix to achar for other important words such as shrishtachar, the behavior of respectable persons, traditional uses that might not be traceable to a shastric source but are acceptable as synonym with sadachar. Shita means respectable person. Anachar, improper behavior regarding of custom, law, and impropriety, unprincipled behavior. Atyachara, transgressing the transcendental norms of achar, in Hindi used to mean oppression, tyranny, irregular. Okay, so a few other meanings are given. Therefore, sadachar, proper behavior, the conduct of sadhus, saintly person. Sadachar is defined in Hari Bhakti Vilas as the behavior of a sadhu, which may be defined as one who strives to attain the highest object to become perfect. So, sadachar also means the behavior according to Shastra Vidhi. It is the practical application of Dharma and the practical manifestation of Siddhanta. Very important point. That the sadachar is a practical manifestation of Siddhanta. These shouldn't be two separate things, as we've heard. Should I follow what's in your books or what you're doing? So that means we don't have proper sadachar. Should I follow what you say or what you do? Well, that was there, Srila Prabhupada. Don't follow, follow what I've taught. Do what as I taught. Also, Srila Prabhupada, do as I have done. But that is there, that it shouldn't be contradictory that one has Siddhanta and then there is Sadachar is different to that Siddhanta, his actions. So these are very important because they're a practical manifestation of Siddhanta, one's activities in one's life. So that is an austerity, laboring very hard to hear, but not just to hear, but to transform oneself and to apply what we're hearing. So that is a qualification of a hearer. That is a qualification of a sadhu. I mean, even those who are hearing here are great sadhus in themselves because they are able to go through that austerity of hearing and applying that. Because also it's very heavy to hear Veda, actually. It's very heavy. I mean, the whole Srimad Bhagavatam in the second canto, Sukadeva Goswami starts with that. Why are you wasting so much time? Why are you laboring so much hard for nonsense? Is there no more trees that give shelter, such and such and such? So, it requires there is a level of austerity in hearing. But that one who takes upon that austerity in hearing and takes upon the teachings properly, then he attains a platform by which he's given intelligence to be able to understand what he's hearing. Because he's willing to take upon that austerity, that he's given that mercy by the spiritual master. Because the spiritual master sees practically that devotee is not just here to hear for, just for the ear's sake, I'm just showing up, yeah. But he's actually changing his character, that he's actually looking to make progress in devotional service. When the spiritual master sees that, just as Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, as you surrender unto me, I shall reward you accordingly. Similarly, how does that verse start? Anybody remember? As you surrender unto me, I shall reward you accordingly. How does it start? Man, nobody knows. Yeṣām mam prapadante tang sateva bhajamiham mama vartman vartante. It might be getting things mixed up. Anyways, key verse, I'm forgetting. But the point being that as you surrender unto the spiritual master gives us more intelligence in how to serve him, how to hear from him, how to understand what he's speaking. So it is a very important aspect here that is being defined, that the hearers and then the quality of hearing and what should be heard about. Those are the three things that are being defined here very nicely. So, transit students those who undergo great penance in being trained by hearing the Vedas from a bona fide spiritual master. Not only must they hear about the activities of the Lord, but they must also hear about the transcendental qualities of the devotees who are constantly thinking of the lotus feet of the Lord within their hearts. So, Krishna is never alone. Krishna should never just, we see anytime there's Krishna in any painting, we have always heard that there's the devotees of the Lord there with him, whether in the form of gomata, in the form of cows, in the form of animals, in the form of, if you look at any painting or picture, you never see Krishna alone. So the devotees of the Lord also never hear about Krishna alone. They hear about the pastimes of the devotees of the Lord also. Because Krishna can never be alone, actually. Krishna means with his devotees. And those who hear about Krishna want to hear about those devotees that Krishna is with, or those who relish Krishna consciousness, or those who act on the platform of Krishna consciousness. So, and that is a very important factor in our lives, that we must not separate the two. Just like Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur says, that, even when performing kirtan, one has to not just perform kirtan, but he also has to hear. Otherwise it becomes an incomplete process. Or there's another statement that to separate, I don't want to misquote actually, I won't state that. I gotta look at that again, because it's quite you could say not controversial, but it's a more very definitive statements. I want to make sure that's correct, so I won't quote that. But the main point being that one who's too, I just want to hear about Krishna only, but then doesn't have an attraction towards hearing about the devotees of the Lord, there's a little bit of a issue there. That he just wants, just like somebody wants to just hear about the Rasa Leela, but doesn't want to hear about the rest of the Srimad Bhagavatam. Because actually the Srimad Bhagavatam, most of it doesn't directly speak about Krishna's pastimes at all. What does it speak about? The devotees, Bhagavatas, who went through different trials and tribulations in their lives in order to glorify the Lord. They held the Lord within their heart. Narada Muni, immediately we see. Narada Muni, what did he do? He saw the Lord within his heart, and then he pursued that. He kept that in his heart and pursued that into the mountains, and then got to get the darshan of the Lord again. Or he pursued it into the mountains after hearing from the Vaishnavas and got to see the Lord. So we see that those who just only want to hear about the Lord but don't want to hear about the pastimes of the devotees of the Lord also, then there is a problem there in their spiritual life, because we see that purification takes place by hearing about the devotees of the Lord constantly. Now, how to hear about the devotees of the Lord? Well, that definition is also given here. That one must be qualified by what? By purification. One must become pure in order to be able to understand the pastimes of the devotees of the Lord. Because, as that verse comes in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, one cannot understand the workings of a Vaishnava. Impossible to understand. Because they work in very strange ways. And unless one knows very nicely, or he himself is purified, then he cannot understand. So many mundane people we see in Chaitanya Charitamrita, we also see within the modern times that people can't understand the activities of Vaishnava, and then they make so many offenses towards the Vaishnava. Because they don't know Shastra Vidhi, they don't understand Sadachar, behavior in accordance with Shastra. So it is important to have the study of the Vedas, and then in light of that, see the sadhu. As my own spiritual master says, the philosophy comes first, the guru comes next. It's not that the guru and then philosophy. No. The Shastra is at the center of everything. Therefore, those who have heard from the spiritual master and become purified, who've undergone the austerity, they should hear about other pure devotees. But if you try to hear about pure devotees prior to having some Shastric understanding, you may develop a misunderstanding, as we see in the case of Srila Prabhupada, that many devotees misunderstand Srila Prabhupada, his own disciples. Those who had intimate association of him misunderstand Srila Prabhupada and who he is and what he stood for. If in the Muda mission, here, did I lose my... Lost my place. But anyways, in Vapu and Vani, that is very deeply discussed in regards to understanding Srila Prabhupada and his mission. Specifically what Srila Prabhupada said about Vapu and Vani, and how many disciples, anyways, I'll just look at my notes, so pull up some things, and many disciples misunderstood Srila Prabhupada. Even to this day they misunderstand Srila Prabhupada, because they view him through some level of mundane point of view. They don't view him through Shastra and what he actually came to give. So it is important, just like some people portray Srila Prabhupada just as compassionate, which is true, but they almost veer on the side of mundane compassion. But they don't understand sometimes how Srila Prabhupada's compassion was on the level of giving people Krishna consciousness, primarily, not feeding the children, not helping the eye hospitals, or helping the homeless or poor or this and that. No, none of that. It was primarily for the conditioned soul, to relieve the conditioned soul of the suffering of this world and give them pure Krishna consciousness. Krishna, give them Krishna, nothing else. Not that Srila Prabhupada just relieved some people or made people feel good. Not at all. Srila Prabhupada specifically emphasized that that is my mission. Nirvisesha shunyavadi, paschatya deshatanya, to remove this mayavad and shunyavad and establish Krishna consciousness in the Gauravani. So that was mercy of Srila Prabhupada, but many don't even mention that when they talk about Srila Prabhupada. Say, oh, how compassionate, and his presence was so uplifting. All these things are true. There's no doubt about that. But they struggle to understand the other statements of Srila Prabhupada, in which Srila Prabhupada is saying, we shall put a gun to their head and make them chant Hare Krishna. Oh, that's not true. Then they have so many excuses for why Srila Prabhupada, how that's not compassionate. Because they have a mundane vision of the sadhu to some extent. So a sadhu must be understood according to Shastra. That is very important. Otherwise, one is liable to cheat oneself and cheat others. Just like if you hear about sadhus from a person who's not trained in Shastra, then 90% of the time you are probably going to be fooled. Just like I've had the experience from hearing from devotees who are not very fixed up themselves and not also fixed up in Shastra, glorifying other devotees, and they're just bogus. They're just bogus. Oh, this devotee is so great, he's a great Mahatma, you should go take shelter of him and do. But if you actually read Srila Prabhupada's books and understand his statements and actually apply them, and then you see, oh, this person hangs out with Mayavadis. This person glorifies Mayavadis. This person might be a Mayavadi. Yeah. But those who are untrained and who didn't go through the austerities of hearing cannot understand. So then, what do? They glorify those who are not qualified to be glorified, those who are not pure devotees of the Lord, or those who are not on that platform or approaching that platform. And then they misguide people. Therefore, Srila Prabhupada gives the qualification here that one himself must be a pure devotee in order to understand others. So therefore the duty of transcendental students to hear of pure devotees, explained by pure devotees. Not that you go hear from some Tom, Dick, and Harry about pure devotees. They don't know anything. They themselves cannot practice. So, we've heard so many lectures on what it means to hear and who to hear from. So that comes as a qualification. We have to hear from the right source, even about pure devotees. Now, of course, Srila Prabhupada's glorification is unlimited. Still, we may have to be careful of who we hear from about Srila Prabhupada, because they may have some mundane vision, or they may, a lot of the time also, misquote Srila Prabhupada, misunderstand Srila Prabhupada, misrepresent Srila Prabhupada, in which can become detrimental to our own spiritual life. Classic example is the Ritviks. They think they represent Srila Prabhupada. They think they understand Srila Prabhupada. But from the core aspect to the whatever, from every angle of vision, they're completely wrong. But they cannot understand that. So we should not hear from them. Even if they may glorify Srila Prabhupada, we don't hear from them. Why? Because their basis of their understanding is completely wrong. So that will enter into our consciousness some misunderstandings, some misinterpretations. So it is important to hear from the pure source in order to become properly purified, in order to be able to act on that platform properly. So narrations of the pure devotees have to be understood properly. And here in the Buddha mission, an important point is made here. The narrations help us understand his value and importance. They help us develop deep faith in the Acharya, and in his books, in the importance of his books. But they never supersede the directions given in his books. So what sometimes that's seen that Srila Prabhupada's disciples or other devotees, they say, oh, Srila Prabhupada did like this. No, but he said like this in his books. So sometimes people take the activities of Srila Prabhupada and then they justify their own activities, instead of taking what Srila Prabhupada has said in terms of Shastra and seeing how to act according to that. So it shouldn't be that the narrations of the pure devotees of the Lord help us get deep faith in the Lord, but we should not use the narrations to extract what we like and what we don't like. That is very important in this understanding. Otherwise, that's mentioned in the Buddha mission, that so many misunderstandings come about, that we don't take Srila Prabhupada to be the total of everything and anything. We don't. We see Srila Prabhupada as the Acharya who is teaching according to Shastra how for us to perfect our life. But Srila Prabhupada, everything that Srila Prabhupada did is based on Shastra. Therefore, we take Srila Prabhupada to be a completely perfect personality in our lives. And so in that sense, we take him as complete, total personality. Everything he did and everything who he was perfectly in accordance with Shastra. But we don't try to imitate that behavior. Why? Because we understand what he has taught. Not that we don't do as I have said, as he has taught in his books. So it is important to understand that when we hear about narrations of the devotees of the Lord, that it is done with the basis of Shastra. Therefore, it's important, otherwise it just turns into sentiment. It's important for devotees to read Srila Prabhupada's books, not just hear about different devotees. That is very important, that gives us great faith, but it begins with understanding why those important devotees are great, why those devotees are such great personalities. Otherwise, we'll just think, it's just mundane. Mundane means it'll just be some sentiment, and we won't understand the core teachings of the Acharya. And when the Acharya leaves, what will happen? Then you'll also go away. As many within this book is also defined very well, that Srila Prabhupada's disciples, some of them just couldn't accept that Vani was more important. And they considered Vapu, the physical presence, to be more important than the Vani, which Srila Prabhupada constantly emphasized, saying, no, the Vani is the most important. And for those who were realized in that, they saw Srila Prabhupada's presence at every moment in their lives. But where those who didn't realize that or didn't have an understanding of that, they went away from the movement. So it is important to have a proper understanding when hearing even about the glories of the devotees of the Lord and how they're acting and how their actions are of complete surrender to the Lord, how that at every moment in their lives they're only acting with, they're holding the lotus feet of the Lord within their hearts. And that's their only way that they move forward in life. As here, when the devotees of the Lord cannot be separated from the lotus feet of the Lord even for even a moment. Undoubtedly, the Lord is always within the hearts of all living creatures, but they hardly know them because they are they're deluded by the illusory material energy. The devotees, however, realize the presence of the Lord, and therefore they can always see the lotus feet of the Lord within their hearts. Such pure devotees of the Lord are glorious as the Lord. They are in fact recommended by the Lord as more worshipable than He Himself. And yes, when we hear about the pastimes of a pure devotee, they give us great faith in devotional service. As within that same section, Srila Prabhupada's disciples said, just to certain devotees, people became devotees just hearing about Srila Prabhupada. They don't know any philosophy, but just hearing about the glory of the Lord, of the pure devotee, it completely purifies our consciousness. And it can bring us to the platform of pure devotional service. And then still we have to take up on the study of Shastra, understand why, so that it's not just on the level of sentiment. But that is the position of the devotee of the Lord. The Lord Himself regards it as greater than Himself, as that verse is there. Sadhava hṛdayeṣu mahyam. That the devotees of the Lord are always sitting within my heart, and I'm always sitting within theirs. And there's always a loving exchange going on between the devotees of the Lord and the Lord Himself. Did I lose it here? Yes, I did. Okay. So it is important to have a proper understanding. And by hearing about the Lord, just like here about the devotees of the Lord, in the whole Srimad Bhagavatam, we're just hearing pastimes of the devotees of the Lord and becoming purified by them, how they acted, how they conducted themselves, the philosophy of the Bhagavatam. And we're hearing mainly about Parikshit Maharaj's journey of hearing. We're hearing about a pure devotee, hearing about other pure devotees. It's quite amazing, actually, the Srimad Bhagavatam. And so many layers of that going on and on and on. Why? Because it is most purifying. So worship of the devotee is more potent than the worship of the Lord. It is therefore the duty of transcendental students to hear about the pure devotees. So why is it that worship of the devotee is more potent than the worship of the Lord? Why is that the case? Anyone? But what does it do? What does hearing of the pastimes of the devotee of the Lord do to the heart? Makes you dear to the Lord. It purifies us. What is that? Satam prasangam mama vidya samvido bhavantirhit rasaya kataha tad-joshana asvapavarga vartmani siddharatir bhaktir anukramashyati. That by cultivating such knowledge, one gradually becomes advanced on the path of liberation, and therefore he is freed and his attraction becomes fixed. The real devotion and devotional service begins. This is in association of pure devotees. Discussion of the pastimes and activities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is very pleasing and satisfying to the ear. So it relieves us of all misery. It gives us faith and establishes on the path of liberation. Our attraction becomes fixed towards the Lord. If you read, I think this is in my memories of Srila Prabhupada, from Guru Maharaj's, in Bhakti Vikas Maharaj's glorifications or his offerings to Srila Prabhupada, he reworks this verse a little bit, and he says, slight adjustment, and he says, in the association of pure devotee, discussion of the pastimes and the activities of Srila Prabhupada is very pleasing and satisfying to the ear and heart. By cultivating such knowledge, one gradually becomes advanced on the path of liberation, and therefore he's freed, and his attraction becomes fixed. So why is it? Well, we've heard that the Lord regards the devotee even greater than himself. Why? Because the devotees of the Lord, Srila Prabhupada writes in another place, are more merciful than the Lord, that they're able to give the Lord to so many people. So in one sense, they become greater than the Lord because they're able to give the Lord to others. And just by the hearing of their pastimes, everything okay here? So just by hearing the pastimes of the devotees of the Lord, we are also hearing about the Lord himself also. Just like when we hear about Srila Prabhupada, it's non-different to hearing about the Lord. It's not that when you speak about Srila Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada cured so many eye camps, created eye, or whatever. Srila Prabhupada fed so many homeless people. That's not the glorification. That's actually not a glorification. No, Srila Prabhupada distributed so much prasadam to so many people, and they became Krishna conscious as a result of that. What is prasadam? For the mercy of Krishna. It is not different from discussion of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Why? Because Prabhupada writes here, they're never separated from the Lord. Their activities are never separated from the Lord. So it's of equal or more, you could say. As mentioned here, worship of the devotee is more potent. Sometimes, hearing of the devotees of the Lord is more potent than just hearing of the Lord. Why? Because they give us faith in the Lord. They establish deep faith in the Lord. When you hear about Srila Prabhupada's struggles in establishing the Krishna consciousness movement, they give us deep faith in preaching the Krishna consciousness movement. When you hear about different devotees, it brings about great faith in devotional service. And we all have that experience. Without the personal touch of devotees and pure devotees in our lives, we couldn't have taken up devotional service. Why? Because by their example, we attained faith to Krishna. Just by seeing Krishna, we wouldn't have got faith. We just wouldn't have. As if you came to the temple and you just saw the deity, okay, whatever. For most of us, Western, for those who are from Western disposition, oh yeah, just some deity, whatever, just some idol worship. But because of the pure devotees of the Lord and their activities, we are able to gain deep faith in Krishna. So therefore, they're regarded even greater. Their glorification and their worship is greater because they give us entrance into that vision of the Lord. They give us knowledge about the Lord. So yeah, this is being mentioned here. And then we see that Satam Prasangam video, some video that when we hear about Srila Prabhupada's pastimes, unlimited in every way, you can just talk about Srila Prabhupada's pastimes forever. And the devotees have gone on doing that, since they knew Srila Prabhupada, just on and on and on and on and on and on. And you can never stop. It's unlimited in its nature. And it's purifying when one has a proper basis of vision. If one doesn't have a proper basis of vision, then it's not pure. It's purifying nonetheless, but it won't have proper effect, the desired effect. As it was mentioned somewhere, I forget. So it must be that we must have a proper basis of hearing. Otherwise, the effect which is desired to be Krishna prema, that won't be there. So it's important to hear about the activities of the pastimes of the devotees of the Lord. Therefore, we have so many nice books like Lilamrita, and then many books written by many Srila Prabhupada's disciples. And then there's so many other books about so many other devotees, just like we have Jayananda Thakur. We can learn so much from that. We have, many other books about many devotees within the Krishna consciousness movement. And so by hearing about them, we become purified. We can come to the platform of liberation, of deep attraction to the Lord. And so just some basic things that have to be understood in order to even hear properly and become purified. So one should ultimately come to this point of hearing from pure devotees and then himself becoming a pure devotee and then glorifying more pure devotees and glorifying the Lord. Of course, the pure devotees, that's all they do. There's nothing else that happens in their association. I had the great fortune of being in the association of Shivaram Maharaj and Bhakti-Vikas Maharaj when they were having this conversation. I had a glimpse of understanding this verse of Satam Prasangam Mama Vidya Samvido. Oh, this is what it means. And they're glorious. It's like, whoa, these two glorious personalities in their own right have unlimited glories to be sung about, but they come together and sing about the glories of the Lord. And it's very tasteful. And when you're in their presence, you get, oh, and it permeates the whole atmosphere. The love of Godhead is overflowing from them. And it's like, whoa, what is going on? It's quite an experience. It's quite a mystical experience. The whole atmosphere is quite surcharged with pure devotional service. So that is the situation one can create by himself becoming a pure devotee, hearing from pure devotees, being in association of pure devotees. And as Srila Prabhupada said, I could understand that statement that when devoted people take up the Krishna consciousness movement, how one can create a Vaikuntha-like atmosphere. In this case, Vrindavan atmosphere. Two both devotees that are very much elevated and on that in Braja Bhakti, specifically serving Krishna in Vrindavan, but that Vaikuntha atmosphere is created by the devotees of the Lord, by their purity, by their presence. Just nothing else but pure devotional service is in their whole existence itself is the definition of pure devotional service. So they're glorious. They're absolutely glorious. So we should seek out that association because that's the essence of Shastra. To seek out that pure association because there's nothing greater than that in this world. One can put all of the jewels and wealth of all of the three worlds together and can't even compare to the moment association of a pure devotee of the Lord. So to realize that and to get that association is the goal of life. It is more worshipable, as Prabhupada says, is more potent than worshipping the Lord directly. So yeah, we should have the desire to seek that out. And so we should be careful in how we deal with devotees, how we conduct ourselves, our sadachar, because it can make or break your devotion service. And just we're saying it's the highest platform of position to come to be able to have association with pure devotees. But if you make the mistake of being offensive to them, then you also will, everything is destroyed by that also. So it is, that raises edge. One has to be careful in the association of devotees. It is not a cheap thing. They're merciful, but one has to conduct oneself properly. Therefore, sadachar is very important. Therefore, one has to see that he changes his behavior and acts properly in his devotional service. Okay, I have 1 more minute left, but I'll end there. Is there any questions or comments? Please feel free to ask. Yes.
Just on this topic, there's a pastime of an associate of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, like a professional associate, and a government associate of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, was saying to Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati that he spent a lot of time with Bhaktivinoda Thakur, and then Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur said, "No, you never met him." He's like, "What do you mean? I was with him all the time." But we actually don't know who the pure devotee is unless we have Shastra Chakshu, like you're saying. Because if we're seeing the devotee just with our own mundane vision, then we're not seeing in the proper perspective of this is a devotee of Krishna. And then you're also talking about, some devotees kind of misconstrue Srila Prabhupada's compassion, to think that it's just mundane compassion, because, Srila Prabhupada fed so many people, he helped the poor, this kind of thing. It's mundane because it's not in relation to Krishna, but if we say, oh, Srila Prabhupada gave prasadam to these people, then it's like Krishna's there, and you see that in the proper perspective.
Yeah, this important statement that's been made in Mood and Mission is that devotees, because of past conditioning makes us think that physical proximity means intimacy. Just because we're with someone, that means we know someone the best. And that was not the case at all. As Srila Prabhupada said, and actually reading through this section, it gives you, if you kind of apply your intelligence a little bit, you can have it's an amazing realization, and it's stated right there. But Srila Prabhupada is saying that his books he considers better than himself. He said, I have put the best of myself in my books. So you want my association? I'm in my books. So that you can actually have that association with Srila Prabhupada directly through his books, and it's the best. I mean, how can you argue what part of Srila Prabhupada is the best? But the point is that Srila Prabhupada is present there in those words. What was the point I was making here? That the physical proximity doesn't mean that you know that person. Actually, it means that you know someone by being able to follow the instructions properly. Srila Prabhupada defined it like that, and that you should read my books and follow my instructions. That is what it means to be close to Srila Prabhupada. That's what it means to know Srila Prabhupada. So many devotees knew Srila Prabhupada and were very close to him. They're glorious for that. But at the same time, they may not actually understand who he is and what actually Srila Prabhupada gave. So it's important to have the distinction. One shouldn't, that if we have a mundane vision or a conditioned vision, then we'll think, oh yeah, this personality was very around Srila Prabhupada a lot. That must mean he knows Srila Prabhupada. May not. So therefore, we are emphasizing this point, and Srila Prabhupada emphasized the point, study Prabhupada's books. Otherwise, you'll go to Prabhupada's disciples that are completely bogus and know, yeah, he's a Prabhupada disciple, he was serving Prabhupada in the early days. Glorious for that, but may not know the teachings of Srila Prabhupada. So a person who's sentimental will take knowledge from him. A person who has read Prabhupada's books and understands it clearly will be cautious. Not that he's disrespectful, again, Sadachar is not disrespectful, but he won't take the instruction or the advice of such a person because he understands, okay, this person is not exactly on here. This is not what Srila Prabhupada said. So it's important to distinguish that, because it can make us think, I was thinking even for myself, that sometimes we think like that, okay, I'm in physical proximity, that must mean this, I'll be able to understand my own spiritual master the best. But no, it means reading and understanding through his Vani. What does the spiritual master want? Sometimes in that, there's so many things and it becomes complicated, but to understand the teaching of the Acharya and apply it is very difficult, can be, because sometimes the spiritual master, what was it mentioned, that some devotees would push Srila Prabhupada just to get an answer and then go and do it, over enthusiasm, but didn't actually see what Srila Prabhupada really wanted through his books, and then approached it like that. So anyways, there's many things about that, but the main point being, proximity, just because you're close in proximity doesn't mean you understand that person. Srila Prabhupada's wife, she knew him for many years, 30 years. Doesn't mean, but none of his family members practically understood who he was at all. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur immediately knew who he was. From the get-go. Again, the point being made here was pure devotees are able to recognize pure devotees. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur immediately, oh, Abhaycharan, okay. And when you read Bhaktisiddhanta Vaibhav, you understand also, oh, even throughout those few years, that few times Srila Prabhupada had association with Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, it was very clear. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur had chosen Srila Prabhupada to go to the West, and he knew this is a very special, he's another pure devotee that is there. So it requires that understanding. At the same time, we see where everyone is at and act accordingly, as Bhaktivinoda Thakur has also advised us. So yeah, it requires deep knowledge in order to recognize a pure devotee also. Yes.
Yeah, you were mentioning on this same point that you need scripture to understand the Acharya. And it's interesting because the past time in the Lila Amrita that I think they're in France, and they held a program, and they were discussing philosophy, and then the congregation was getting upset, and Prabhupada said, what do they know about this philosophy? Give them the holy name, give them prasadam, and then do the philosophy later, because he was saying they're not pure enough to even understand it, right? And then there's another I was thinking also about some of Prabhupada's early disciples were, like you said, completely just went haywire when he left. But then others, when Prabhupada was there, like Jayananda, Jayapataka Swami Maharaj, Upanuga. It's different disciples that they didn't really understand Shastra at all, but they just had faith in Prabhupada. And Guru Maharaj made that point in that class with Jayananda that he had intense faith in Prabhupada, even though his knowledge in scripture might have not been like the level of like he knew deep level, but his distinguishing characteristic was that he had that faith in Prabhupada. So I guess my question is, there are instances where just having faith in Prabhupada kind of trumps any knowledge you know from the philosophy of Krishna consciousness, and like Jayananda is just a good example of that.
Yeah, there's many throughout here that just purifying, fortifying, addictive, his presence, transformative. So many experiences are there when just by seeing Srila Prabhupada you become completely transformed. There's no doubt about that. He's a pure devotee of the Lord. But at the same time, there has to be a basis of Shastra and understanding that, so that it's not treated as just some sentimental thing. Because we hear so many times, you'll see other gurus, these bogus gurus, their disciples will say the same type of stuff. You'll see that in other bogus, you'll see that. What is this? You look at Bhakti Marg, their whole videos on YouTube, it's just glorifying this bogus rascal. And they talk about how they had a transformation of heart. It's like, whoa. So how do you distinguish that from what our devotees felt? Well, it's real in this case, but why is it real? Because everything Srila Prabhupada did was on the basis of Shastra. And we have to be able to tell people that. Otherwise, how will people say, he's another sentimentalist. Why can we say this guru is bogus? Because this isn't according to Shastra, he is doing everything wrong. Therefore, what these people feel about this person is completely bogus and is sentimental and mundane. But the devotees of Srila Prabhupada, what they feel is completely transcendental, and they're actually purifying. Why? Because it is in accordance with Shastra. Back to Shastra. So it has to be on that basis though. Yes, it is purifying, and there's nobody doubting that yes, there's transformation for our own lives, like I also mentioned, that we see devotees, and immediately, I remember, after years after not being at the temple, and I grew up around Vaishnava families and all that, but years after not seeing devotees for a while, I remember seeing a devotee and going, whoa, what is this? It's quite attractive. And then there's cases where he's sentimentally attached to certain devotees without knowing much of the philosophy. And it's still purifying, again, because Krishna consciousness, the whole movement, because of Srila Prabhupada, is based on Shastra. It is purifying. But then you also have experiences in your devotional service where you've had that faith, but then it breaks a lot of people because they didn't have an underlying Shastra understanding of everything. So when that person, who they considered to be pure, turned out not to be pure, they couldn't understand it. So it was mundane vision to a great extent. So we judge it on that basis. Because if you'll see that devotees who go on even after people fall down and have difficulties and all that, they understood what the essence of what the philosophy was. But those who just had some mundane vision of the Vaishnava considered, it's still purifying, but they won't be able to go on because it's not sustained on the level of Shastra. It's sustained on the level of sentiment, which is not what we're, about. So again, Shastra comes first, Guru comes second. Now, it's purifying, but that level of Shastric knowledge should come and should be understood. Why is it that I'm feeling like that and why it's bona fide? If you don't have that understanding, then that feeling may be thrown, that feeling may change according to the place, and then you may develop feeling for another guru. And then you go to the other guru, now he makes me feel good. Now, that happened in our society, that. We have Srila Prabhupada, and then we have this other guru coming in saying, I'm teaching something much better than what your guru is teaching. Oh yeah, I had feeling towards Srila Prabhupada, but now he's giving me Braja Bhakti. Now I have feeling towards this person. So let me just go there. But it's bogus. It's no understanding of Shastra. You can't give up Guru. That's Guru Tyag. Your spiritual life is done. So, important principles. Yes, all these devotees, of course, and there's no doubt. But because Srila Prabhupada was based on Shastra, only reason, not because Srila Prabhupada was just a charismatic personality, not just because Srila Prabhupada was such and such and such, but because everything he did was based on Siddhanta, as we were saying before, Sadachar is a manifestation of Siddhanta. So everything a devotee does is a manifestation of Siddhanta. So it's purifying. If it's not, then it's not purifying. So very important to understand that principles in our own lives, not be sentimentally attached. That sentiment comes as a result of level of knowledge and adherence to devotional service. But it can't be mundane sentiment. It has to be purified sentiment. Yeah? So it's very important to, because I always wondered that in the past. How do we distinguish? Like they're feeling like that about these bogus gurus, but we also feel like that about our own guru. What is the difference? Study of Shastra as it is. That is the difference. Yeah. Anything else? Yes. Abhimanyu Prabhu.
Prabhu, regarding just this vision of the spiritual master as mundane, because we were hearing about how there's Krishna and people are sentimental, they only accept Krishna, not his pure devotees. But there's also that lower level of like, okay, you may accept Krishna's pure devotees, but you may not accept the representatives of Krishna's pure devotees. It's like only you and the pure devotees' instructions, and you're very like seemingly attached to those instructions, but simultaneously you don't really accept the representatives of those pure devotees because they themselves are not seen on that level of pure devotion. And although that pure devotee himself accepts these people as like he authorized them, like it's kind of like Ritvigism, I guess, kind of like how Prabhupada accepts it, those people, but you don't have faith, like, in those representatives. And one may come up with so many excuses also, like, the spiritual master, he's seeing this, but he's not seeing this, I'm seeing things, and although he's the spiritual master not being told everything, and I understand them a bit more, and you don't accept those representatives that the spiritual master himself trusts. So I guess my question is that, is it that every person that your spiritual master trusts, you must trust, or is there room for distrust, or does that simply stem from just the mundane perception of the spiritual master's like decision making?
So it's important to understand a few things. It's a big topic. So the spiritual master authorizes certain personalities to take upon duties and responsibilities in order to keep the movement going. And so those personalities are generally understood to be in good standing, following 4 regular principles, chanting 16 rounds, and of proper sadachar. So it should be seen, first thing, that the person who is representing the spiritual master has a good understanding of Shastra. That's first thing. And that his activities are all based on that. Those are the first things that one must see. That is the achar, prachar. Those things are in line, because that indicates their vichar, what they're thinking also. So that has to be seen, and one has to also be on that level of being able to analyze that. So there's a little bit of few qualifications here in order to actually whether one should trust a representative of one's guru or not. Because it may be that sometimes that the representative who is designated as a representative isn't a proper representative. So one has to understand, in order to be able to recognize that, one himself has to be well learned in what the spiritual master is teaching. And then, if that person is in the position of representing the spiritual master, there is respect given. Again, nobody is expected to have total faith and undeviating faith in that person. There's always room for, of course, seeing how that personality is acting and what they're doing, and that can always be brought up to the spiritual master because your relationship is there with the spiritual master. But in general, sometimes we're put under situations in which we're under a particular authority, and our spiritual master has asked us to just be under them. And he's made it a point to tell us, just do it. Then you have to accept. Sorry, at the time of initiation, that's what you gave your life to. Take responsibility for it. And how does the disciple take the vision? He sees that the spiritual master is making me go through this in order to purify me, that's all. That he doesn't see, oh, look, he's wrong, my spiritual master is wrong, this person is wrong, then it becomes offensive. So then he has to see, okay, I'm under a difficult situation in order to become purified. But I must accept the orders of my spiritual master and work under this person. If my spiritual master has demanded that, I do that. There's always, of course, room to talk with the spiritual master and see if you want to go somewhere else and try somewhere else. But generally, sometimes the spiritual master wants us to do that, we just do it, that's all. And learn titiksha, learn tolerance, learn how to, unless there's serious problems with that person, then that has to be pointed out. And that has to be dealt with properly in association with other proper Vaishnavas. You don't just take it up on your own mind. You discuss among other Vaishnavas what is going on, and then you approach it. So there's a proper way of approaching that. If there is a representative of the spiritual master that is not representing the spiritual master properly, that must not just be from our own conception, but from conception from other Vaishnavas who are well situated in devotional service. Then it can be given significance. But from our own mind, and the others don't agree, then you should know, oh, okay, I'm probably wrong here. Then you need to take up on the austerity of doing that.
Yeah, I've seen that like you may have like some problem with some specific authority, and then that's your conception of it, and maybe even a couple other devotees' conception. But then you leave that situation, and then you kind of analyze things and all the devotees that were in that situation you're previously in, and you see just a bunch of fixed up devotees who absolutely have no problem with the authority, and they're completely satisfied in their Krishna consciousness. And these aren't just like regular devotees; they're all fixed up, philosophically fixed up, and their achar is nice. And that I've seen is also like a great gauge as well. How all the other devotees who aren't even like on the level of like the authority, but who all accept the authority as well, and how they're practicing.
Yeah, it has to be seen. You can't just approach some new bhakta and ask him for his advice on what he thinks about the authority. You have to see what other devotees experience. And there's always problems. Managers are naturally pushy personalities. It's just how it is. That's just how it is. They're strong personalities, otherwise they wouldn't be managers or leaders or anything like that. And you have to take that to some consideration, be level-headed about it. It's just how it is. So why is he like, well, he's the leader, okay, he has to have a level of that push and shove, but at the same time he's of very great quality in terms of following and trying to be pure. I didn't give Mataji a chance. Is there anything real quick on the side? No, okay. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
So, now the mercy of the devotees.